This next question comes from New York City, but I know from representing you on radio programs around the country, it's something on a lot of people's mind, and there's a lot of discussion of this. The questioner wrote, over the last week, a number of articles have appeared talking about the threats to the president-elect's life, as well as warnings about some kind of major terrorist assault very early in Obama's first term. I believe the threat of both to be very high. Obviously, those protecting the president and the nation should be well aware of these threats. However, since so much attention is focused on the president's security, one question that I raised was to assess the risk to other prominent figures. I was assured that the risk was low. I'm not sure I agree with that, and I appreciate your view.
Well, you know, in January 3rd of 2001, before the inauguration of George Bush for the first time, George H.W. Bush, I warned that the likelihood of a major terrorist act against the United States. Now, I had no specific indication of an actual terrorist attack. How did I know that? How did I know that something like 9/11 was going to happen without knowing that 9/11 was going to happen? Why did I warn about that? Well, because I understand these processes. And I don't believe in the usual silly conspiracy theories. I know how many presidents of the United States have been assassinated. Virtually every assassination I know of a president or attempted assassination of any significance was done by the British. Lincoln was assassinated by the British. There's no doubt of that. The whole conspiracy was outlined, and some details were kept out of the public, but it was there. Who assassinated McKinley? It was by the British. Why'd they assassinate him? Why? To get in Teddy Roosevelt. Why? In order to prepare for the King of England's intention, or what was to be the King of England soon, intention, to have World War I. And McKinley would not have happened under McKinley. There were two things, or actually three things, that were crucial for starting World War I, which had already been intended by the British monarchy, especially the Prince of Wales at that time. One was ouster of the Chancellor of Germany, Bismarck, from office, because Bismarck had put the plug in against the use of a Balkan war to trigger a Russian-Germany conflict. That was the reason he was put out, to clear the way for what became World War I, which, as Bismarck said in that immediate period after it, was the intention to replay the 7 Years' War. Right. So now, therefore, to understand that plot, you have to understand the 7 Years' War and so forth. You have to understand history, and you have to understand that history is not a matter of individual actions randomly, but it's a matter of institutions which have built-in reflexes into them. And then when certain things happen, you're going to get a certain kind of reaction. So it happened. Now, what was the significance of assassination of McKinley? McKinley was an American patriot, and his vice president, Teddy Roosevelt, was not. As a matter of fact, Teddy Roosevelt was the nephew of the former head of the British Intelligence Service in charge of the Confederacy. And he trained Teddy Roosevelt and catered his backing. Teddy Roosevelt was succeeded by, of course, Taft, but then he was succeeded by another president, Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson came from a family which was the founding of the Ku Klux Klan. And when Woodrow Wilson was in the White House as president, he refounded the Ku Klux Klan on a national basis with a ceremony in the White House itself. So you have two characters who are British assets, Woodrow Wilson and Teddy Roosevelt, who were both set in as a part of a British-run operation because the Confederacy was a British operation. of Lord Palmerston. Now, so therefore you understand these things. Now you get a situation that I faced on January 3rd, 2001. You had a situation of an absolutely incompetent piece of crap, this president, incumbent president. A worthless piece of crap. A complete creation of George Shultz, the same George Shultz who helped give us the Pinochet regime in Chile. Not a good guy. And did some other similar kinds of things. Totally a British asset. Not a patriotic American. A British asset. Has been for a long time. That you had an incompetent coming in as president. On a whisper. And with the crisis as I knew it at the time, they're going to try to control the situation with some kind of dictatorship. How do you get a kind of dictatorship in the United States? You create a national emergency. How do you create a national emergency? Well, shoot the president, or do something similar, something on a similar scale. All I said was that what we're going to get is some kind of terrorist action this year, which will be used to orchestrate an emergency situation. And that emergency situation will be used as the vehicle for controlling the presidency under President George W. Bush, Jr. And it came, I was looking at it in late August. In August of the year, we were watching a number of cases which were likely terrorist attacks. One around Washington, D.C. It was a big one around there, highly organized. And then you had another one, which was in New York City. And they used the New York City one. And everything we saw that was going to happen happened as a result of that. It was used for exactly that reason, to create a degree of dictatorship which had never existed before in the United States under this president. We've been running under a dictatorship under George W. Bush, Jr. How was it put into effect? This way it was done. Now, I got a new kind of a president. My indications are that he's not long for this world. Might be elected, but he's not going to be long for this world. When do I get that? Early this year. I check it. I've got a situation on my hands. This is a made-ready situation for an assassination of a prospective presidential candidate or president, either one, before or after the election. The British are saying that too. I look at Chicago, where the key factors are there. It's all there. It's not a matter of having some deep insight into this or that. It's a matter of understanding the process and understanding the institutions, understand how they work. When you get into certain kind of situations, you're on the edge of war. In different kind of situation, you're not on the edge of war. In another situation, you're in the danger of an assassination attempt against a head of state. In another situation, not. So you don't operate the way these crazy people do. You operate on the basis of knowing that society is a process, a systemic process, and that under certain conditions, societies react in a certain way. And that's the way it happens. Now you've got a situation where you have an absolutely incompetent president-elect. For the present situation, he's totally incompetent. Only some sudden inspiration would get him to act contrary to profile. Right? It could happen. There have been religious conversions in the past. And one, you could pray for one now. But in the present situation, since he's useless as a policy maker, unless he gets this magical conversion, which I prayed for him to receive, that unless that, the British have got a problem. They're trying to control the United States. This guy can't do it. Well, what do? Well, they go to a new level of dictatorship. How do they get the necessary desired level of dictatorship to control the United States in a system where the whole damn world system is collapsing and they want dictatorship? Assassinate the president-elect. It solves their problem from their standpoint. Therefore, despite or because of, despite all the stories I get from various sources, especially British sources, including the British press, that he's in danger of being assassinated. I say, you're damn right he's in danger of being assassinated. Being what he is in his situation with the present situation, he's very likely to be assassinated. Why? Because is it personal? No, it's not personal. Nothing personal about it. Bang, bang. This is policy. This is not personal. Bang, bang. And, the best thing you can do to defend him is for me to tell you what I know, what I just did. Say, well, if something happens, it was done by them. And I know they're the ones who would do it, or they're agents. So if something bad happens to him, you know who did it. You know what to do about it. And that's the best protection I can give him. I don't want him assassinated anyway. I don't like that idea. I don't think he's qualified to be president, but he shouldn't be assassinated. And in the meantime, let's hope for a miracle. Let's hope somehow some miracle descends upon him and he does become qualified. Or at least under our presidency, that can happen. If you have the right combination of people in the government, they can make a very incompetent president look very good if he's willing to go along with that. That's the best hope we have right now for this guy.